My name is Lynn and I am the founder and executive director of Lope.
First question I have is tell me a bit about yourself and how you started Lope.
Well, I actually didn't grow up with horses. I grew up in the suburbs and in Washington, D.C. area in Northern Virginia. So there's part of Virginia that's really close to Washington, D.C. And so it's essentially like a suburb of D.C. So my parents didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't afford to have horses. The area was very expensive. So you had to, really you had to work pretty hard to have horses unless you were already very financially comfortable. So I didn't learn to ride till I was an adult. When I got my first full-time job, that was one of the things I did to immediately reward myself, was I got riding lessons. And then after I'd been riding for a while, I was working in an office and, having a very traditional career, but I couldn't stop thinking about horses. They just started to take over. And someone took me to the backside of a track, and that's the racing barn area where they keep the horses while they're in training. And I fell in love with it. I couldn't believe how gorgeous the horses were, how athletic. I loved the atmosphere back there, the jockeys and the exercise riders and the trainers. It was a little bit like going back in time because everybody just worked with the animals and they worked with the horses. And so there was this sense of leaving my boring day-to-day life behind. So that took over quite a bit, and I found out there was organizations that helped these horses find new homes. We then moved to Texas, and I had trouble getting a job in my normal career. At the time we came, the job market was pretty tight. So I reached out to a local racetrack to see if they had maybe like a volunteer program, because I really missed going to the track, and they were like, "We don't have one, would you like to start one?" And so I did. I started first just with a website where I would list horses for sale for the trainers who couldn't run well anymore. There was no commission, we took no money. This was before smartphones. I mean, I literally took photos with a little digital camera, and I would have to go and get them scanned. I mean, it was crazy. When I look back on it, it's like, how did you get anything done without technology? And then, even though I was living in an apartment at the time, we got an opportunity to lease some pastures for $20 a month. So race trainers started sending me horses that couldn't run anymore or were injured, and then it just took off from there. It was I could have never predicted it, ever.
What's your favorite part of the job?
I mean, it's the horses. I love working with the horses. I love assessing them. I love watching them grow. Some of them come, they might have some training issues, some emotional issues, some might have some rehab issues, and it is so cool to be part of the trajectory of that. I love handling the horses. I mean, I love mucking pens, but I love to ride. So anything to do with the horses, I just really enjoy. And of course, I love working with the interns as well, with the youth and then the young adults who are coming through our program. That's really fun because I feel like I can kind of pass along my passion in a way that's really constructive and also share what the horses taught me. And so I get up every day and it's like I'm a little kid. Now, there are days where, of course, it's hard with horses. It's a physically demanding job, and sometimes, the horses get injured or there's hard things like that. But I never have looked back at my old career. I'm just so grateful to have been able to do this work.
What skills have you learned, or kind of how has this job changed, kind of how you kind of go through, I guess your personality and with the horses?
That's a great question. So when I worked at an office, I used to smoke cigarettes, first of all, so I was a chain smoker, and I was really restless. I never would be in my office, so if people wanted to meet with me, the running joke at the company was, look for Lynn in the hallways, because I would never be actually seated at my desk. I always had to move. And I think looking back on it, I was really restless and frustrated because I wasn't in my right setting. That was a great job for someone else, but I needed to be elsewhere. Once I started working with the horses, first of all, I gained a lot of physical skills. I learned how to do things seriously, basic stuff, throw hay bales, and how to manage a farm, and how to assess horses' health really quickly. I learned how to watch the horses. So that was one of the big things for me, and it's what I teach people also. I also teach horsemanship privately, not through Lope, to adults, is that I didn't come into it as a professional trainer, so I didn't have these preconceived ideas, like this is how a horse should be trained. So each horse that came to me, I would just respond to what that horse was presenting in the moment. How are they carrying their body? This horse seems tense. Why is he tense when I do this and more relaxed when I do that? I'm going to do more of the thing that relaxes him, but why is he tense? Is it something that could be helped? So I had a very different perspective, and the horses really taught me to trust that, to trust what they were telling me. They gave me all of my background. Everything that I teach people, I learned from the horses at Low, every single thing. So that really changed everything about how I view the world too, kind of philosophically. So if you hang around with horses, they don't care about, they don't care what you look like, they don't care how much money you make, they don't care, who you voted for or what church you go to. They just respond to who you are, your presence as a person in that moment, and the skills that you're able to offer them. And there's something very pure about that, and very humbling at the same time. So it taught me to be patient. It taught me to be in the moment. It taught me what the right priorities in life are, maybe. Maybe the kind of car I drive isn't as important as helping this horse with something that was really, troubling to the horse. And then it also really, I already had a really good sense of humor about myself, but it really taught me to laugh at myself, because if you take yourself too seriously, these horses, they will definitely help you adjust that attitude really quickly. So all of those things.
A tricky question, but what's your favorite horse, or what horse has taught you the most, you think?
Oh, that is a tricky question. Let me think for just a minute. I think one of the horses who taught me the most is a horse who's passed away now. He came to the program early, and his name was Lightning Ball. And he was probably like our third war horse here. And a war horse is a horse that ran extra long at the track. So he came off the track at age 9. He had won his first owners a lot of money, and then he'd gotten claimed, and he was kind of getting in the lower and lower levels of racing. And his original race owner was an engineer, and he watched Lightning Ball's career, and he felt like, I should intervene, like he could end up in a bad place. And so he did. He claimed the horse back, and he donated him to our program. Now, the thing about Lightning Ball was that he had a bad reputation. So he was known for being kind of a rogue, or they call it bad actor. He's a bad actor. And because he could kick and bite. And I didn't know that, of course. I just took him in. And but what I found about him was he was the kind of horse who, if you approached him, like, I think you're going to kick me, he'd be like, why are you approaching me like that? And so he would brace up right back at you. And he was the horse that taught me to really be in the moment and to give him an opportunity. And he ended up becoming my personal riding horse. And he was the most athletic horse I've ever sat on to this day. And I mean, I have sat on some gorgeous warm bloods, horses of all breeds. That horse was an incredible athlete. And he always kind of had this little teeny kind of mafia thing, like, we don't go to certain places together. And I'd be like, that's fine. It wasn't that he was threatening me. It was more like you could not manhandle him. But you had to be clear. And he taught me all these things about balancing out that, and also that a lot of times horses will react to how you treat them. So if you think a horse is a bad horse and you haven't articulated that maybe, but it's in your posture, it's in your attitude, your physical tone, a horse will fulfill those expectations just like a kid will. So he taught me all of that.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, he's an older story. He was a cool horse. He was beautiful too. He was like 16'2", liver chestnut. I mean, just a gorgeous animal.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite memory of all those years?
Oh my goodness, what's my favorite memory? One of my favorite memories is that I was riding a horse who had come to our program very early on. So this is when I'm still very green. And this horse's name was Uncle Tex. And he was only 3 years old. He never raced. And they told me they had given him 30 days at the track. So he had 30 days under saddle, taught at the track. And I thought, for some insane reason, that it would be really fun to take him to a Ray Hunt colt starting clinic. And I'm like, I'll be fine, because he's had 30 days. Like, this is how innocent I was. I had no idea the quality of those 30 days. And he was a sweet horse. He was tall, very kind 3-year-old. So I go into that Ray Hunt clinic, and Ray Hunt was, he was probably the best horseman ever, but he at that time, people would come from all over to start colts, and most of them were, of course, cowboys. So I come in, I've got my English saddle, my little English helmet, you know. I was, again, super clueless and innocent. And the first day when you ride them in a colt starting clinic like that, is you saddle them. Remember, most horses were never saddled before. But you saddle them, and then you ride them in a rope halter with a lead rope. And you don't have reins, you just flip the rope over from side to side. So if I want my horse to turn this way, I would flip the lead rope over his head from the saddle, and then I would turn him that way. So I didn't have two reins. That was the norm. I didn't know that when I came there. I'm like, okay, I guess this is fine. And so the way the clinic worked, once we had mounted our horses and, you know, established that we could be on them, Ray, who was teaching from the sidelines, had us all get into a small round pen together, and he had an assistant, a really great guy from Canada, and Harley was his name, and he had a horse, and he, from the horse, would flag us as a unit so that all the colts would learn to move together, right, in this little round pen. So it's pretty intense, right? So there's all these horses, and of course my horse is tall, and Ray Hunt kind of bellows out from the sidelines, the microphone, and they're like, everybody, pay attention to that thoroughbred, big tall horse like that. He'd kick you from a mile away. Don't ride up on him. And everybody just parted. Like and then I felt like such like, oh, I guess I'm doing something that's a little bit like, that was like my first thought, but I also felt so proud in a way too, like, cause the horse was doing so well.
Yeah.
And so it was just this funny, this is the first time I ever felt like, oh, I guess this could be dangerous. Like I was being kind of clueless, but then at the same time feeling that simultaneous pride and appreciation for this very young horse who took care of me all throughout that.
Yeah.
So that was a really fun memory.
Oh, that's cool.